Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. And Philippe, it is Saint-Jean-Baptiste in Quebec, so Bonne Saint-Jean. How are you doing out there? I think you're melting, eh?
Yeah, we have a heat wave in southern Quebec and Ontario. It's pretty bad, so I'm happy to be in my basement right now. But yeah, Bonne Saint-Jean-Baptiste à tous les Canadiens français. Bonne fête nationale à tous les Québécois. I celebrate usually the solstice because something real happens on that day, and we have passed the solstice. We are in summer officially, so feels pretty good. I'm on vacation from my college. I think the rhythm of polls will slow down significantly.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad to be speaking with you today. So where do you want to start, my friend?
I think we're going to start out west. We don't have a lot of polls to discuss today. We have a couple. We will get to them. But we finally had those by-elections take place in Alberta. Yes. Those 3 provincial by-elections in 2 ridings in Edmonton, 1 riding in rural southern central Alberta, and thought we might go through some of the results. So why don't we start right there? So we had 2 by-elections in Edmonton. Edmonton Strathcona, which was the riding of Rachel Notley, and Edmonton Ellerslie, which was the riding of Rod Loyola, who resigned to run for the federal Liberals, who then dumped him, and then he ran as an independent. He didn't do very well, but they had to fill that seat. And then there was the riding in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills, in just north of Calgary. This was a rural riding. And what do you want to do? You want to take these one by one?
Is that the most interesting of the 3?
Should we start with the most interesting or keep people on their toes?
That's right. Okay, let's start with Strathcona. The leader of the NDP, the former mayor of Calgary, Monsieur Nenshi, will finally enter the Alberta legislature. You and I, Eric, we discussed what was the benchmark, what was the target for the Alberta NDP in that riding. And I think we set the line, the acceptable line, around 75. Miss Notley had over 80%, I think she had 80% of the vote in the general election. And Monsieur Nenshi, 82% of the vote. So Edmonton Strathcona, not hesitating, going from one NDP leader to another. Does that surprise you that Monsieur Nenshi did as well? I know it's a by-election, but still, it's a leader, a new leader entering legislature. Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me. It does surprise me because he's not Rachel Notley. He's a mayor of Calgary, a former mayor of Calgary, new leader of the NDP, sure. But Rachel Notley had been in MLA since, I think, 2008. She had been the leader of the party. Her father was a former leader of the party. She was a premier. And in an election where they didn't do that well, she got 72% back in 2019, but she got, as you said, just under 80% in the last election. I thought it was inevitable that there would be a bit of a drop, that Nenshi wouldn't do as well as Notley. So the fact that he got 82, I mean, now, like, that's the second election or, contested vote where he's gotten at least 80%.
Yeah.
That is impressive to me. I kind of expected that he would drop. And I think a lot of people probably were and was wondering if this would be a little bit of a barometer of how popular Naheed Nenshi is within Edmonton, within the NDP. In the end, 82% of the vote, up a couple points. UCP dropped 3 points. Sure, it's a by-election. Turnout wasn't too high, and I imagine that it was largely NDP voters who would have gone out. Obviously it was, but I mean in the sense that would have been enthused to go out to vote, whereas UCP voters seeing the writing on the wall might not have bothered.
Yeah.
But that's a good result for Naheed Nenshi. Danielle Smith, when she ran to get a seat in 2022 or 2023, her vote dropped. So we don't see this for Nenshi. So that, I think, is mission accomplished for him there in Strathcona.
It is, but I'm sighing at the same time because maybe also it's a case of the other parties not really trying. And I don't want to take anything away from Mr. Nenshi and the NDP. Okay, they held Strathcona with a stronger vote. But in the other part of town, Edmonton, Ellerslie, the NDP dropped 10 points, right? They just had under 51% in that by-election. And they had 61 and change in the general election. And so, I mean, I would have traded, if I'm the NDP, the Alberta NDP, I would have traded dropping 10 points in Strathcona, but not dropping elsewhere in Edmonton. So the NDP holds Edmonton, Ellerslie. But is the result a bit worrying for Nenshi and the NDP here?
The thing with this result is that the UCP vote really didn't move, right? They went up a single point. So it wasn't exactly that the UCP was garnering lots of new support. They put in apparently lots of effort to try to win this riding. Didn't seem to have the benefit. Instead, you saw the Liberals get 5% of the vote. The Republicans got 3%, so maybe that limited the UCP's kind of growth. But this is a 13-point margin of victory. And I looked at it when I set my benchmarks, my own benchmarks on the writ last week. I had said that the NDP needs to win Edmonton Ellerslie by 14 points. If they win by 14 points, it means that they are still in a position to sweep Edmonton, because the tightest riding was Edmonton to Core. And if the margin between the UCP and the NDP was less than 14 points in Ellerslie, that could suggest that they would be in a position to lose to Core.
Right.
And what is the result? A 13-point win. So it's the kind of result that is not terrific. It's still a win. It's borderline. So you can imagine that in a future election, if the NDP got 51% of the vote in Ellerslie, they might be sweeping the city, but it's not a guarantee. They should be a little bit higher than this if they're sweeping Edmonton.
I'm surprised the Alberta Liberals did. I mean, okay, 5% is not that much, and I think it was 450 votes or something. But it's not that much, but 410 to be precise. Just surprised that, like, they still exist. Didn't they run a very, very partial slate last time? So
I don't think they had any candidates in any of these ridings last time.
Yeah.
This was the riding where Amarjeet Sohi, or at least part of the riding, where Amarjeet Sohi ran for the Liberals, and the Conservatives won that riding. It was expected that that could be one that the Liberals could pick up, which I guess is a sign that's positive for the NDP, that the UCP wasn't able to kind of ride that or get that kind of vote out. So there are still some voters in that riding who might have voted for Poilievre in the last election and voted for Nenshi in this one. This seems hard to believe.
I know.
What was the turnout in that one? It's pretty low.
Do we have this?
I think I saw some people talking about it being in the high teens.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah. So with all the efforts that both the NDP and the UCP seem to have put into this riding, it didn't seem to get actual votes.
Oh my God, yeah.
out.
I'm in Ellerslie. Yeah, 8,500 votes. So that would be a below 20% turnout.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
That's a little bit of an asterisk, I guess, on that result.
By the way, Alberta Elections website. Okay, I kind of like. They have the poll by poll result of the whole thing, but nowhere do they have percentages. Like, come on, don't make me do more math. Like, just it's nice to have the vote total, but you could have just one more line behind. So I had to say, okay, Ellerslie NDP had 4,300 votes over 8,500. Come on, like it's so you're so close. It's a good site, but come on, like. Put the percentages somewhere. Anyway.
Well, it's summertime when we get into criticizing the elections authority websites. All right, and finally, the by-election, a lot of people were kind of focusing on Ellerslie, whether the UCP would win it, and in the end, it wasn't that close, so I think that does suggest, there was maybe a lot of hype that maybe the NDP could lose this seat. They didn't really come that close to losing it, so I think from that perspective, it was a good result, maybe from the NDP, bad for the UCP. And then Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills.
Yeah.
So we got 61% of the vote for the United Conservatives. That's down around 14 points from the last election.
Yeah.
The NDP held their vote. They're at 20%, up a little bit, up about a point. And then the Republican Party of Alberta got just under 18% of the vote. So it does seem like much of that, if not all of that, did come from the UCP. But I'm not sure what to make of these numbers. They're sort of in this weird gray area for me about whether they're good or bad for any of the parties.
It really is, Eric, because I remember when we discussed this, and it also leads to a discussion about Poilievre's federal riding coming up in August. If the Republicans had 5%, there's no discussion. If it have 26, suddenly. But at 17 and change, okay, the Republican Party really did not do well in Edmonton, but that was expected. So basically, could they take a chunk of the vote in ridings that the UCP wins by 50 or 60 points, so they will get votes, but will not endanger any UCP seats, unless maybe if they do better in Calgary in some seats. But So, I'm not even sure what to. So it's a force. It's 18% in a by-election. It's not negligible. We cannot just toss it aside. But it's not that great either.
Yeah.
So I wonder if one would say, well, they just started. They're building momentum. They are organizing. Perhaps in the general, which we expect to be held in 2 years, maybe before that, if Danielle Smith wants to go early, perhaps they will use this result to be okay. We are the third party in Alberta. Still a long ways to go though. But I wonder whether I was asked many times why the Republican was not on 338. My answer was simple. I did not have a benchmark. I did not have a point of reference. Now this is my point of reference. I will add the Republicans on my on 338, but it's just that. Is it a one-off? I don't know. I don't know.
There's a couple things with these numbers. Like 18% in a riding like this is okay.
Yeah.
But, if they manage to get 18% in every rural riding, and they got 3% or so, as they did in Ellerslie, and they got less than 1% in Strathcona. But if they get, let's say they get 2% in the urban centers, and they get 18% in the rural areas, that means province-wide they're going to be at around, 7?
7, 8, yeah.
That's not nothing. But I'm not sure if it's really enough for the UCP to worry about, considering that a lot of this vote is going to be in areas where the UCP wins very comfortably. I looked at it. If you drop the UCP by 18 points, everywhere in rural Alberta, they win every seat in rural Alberta. The only two seats that would flip are not rural seats. It's Lethbridge East. And Red Deer, I think, was north. Those two, but those are not rural ridings. They're small cities, so the Republican vote might not be that high. So the UCP could afford to lose 18% of the vote throughout the rural parts of the province and not lose a single seat.
Yeah.
But my question is, do we have the same kind of reaction, and I think we've seen already, that we saw from Scott Moe ahead of the Saskatchewan election, where they were worried about the Saskatchewan United Party, the Buffalo Party, and moved a little bit to the right to try to shore up that flank, and in so doing lost the cities. So could the UCP overreact to this 18%, kind of double down on the Alberta sovereignty kind of stuff, and in so doing give the NDP the opportunity to hold Edmonton and maybe make some inroads in Calgary, because the UCP did not do very well in either of the Edmonton ridings here.
No, that's fair. Well, the thing is, my first reaction to your comment, Eric, would be that Danielle Smith, I think, is a better strategist than Scott Moe. No offense to Mr. Moe, but and also, so Danielle Smith has a really strong hand. We talked about this in the election right now. The NDP is not polling that well. The NDP had 44% of the vote last time, and it wasn't enough, and they're in the mid-30s right now in the polls. So I do try to give them some rope, the separatists, but enough rope for them to hang themselves, as we say in French. I'm not sure it's a saying in English, but giving them some leeway maybe is the best way to expose how unpopular they will be in the future. But it is an interesting result. 18% was in that area that was I don't know what that means. I think
under 10 would have been bad. Over 20 would have been something. Between 10 and 20 is not sure what this means.
Does this last question on this for you, Eric? Does this result tell you anything about Pierre Poilievre's federal riding of Battle River or Crowfoot? Does that say anything for you?
Maybe you could check a map. I can't recall if these two overlap. I don't know if they do.
They're kind of close though, right? Yeah. They're in the east of the province, and they stretch almost to Calgary to almost to Edmonton. But for me, let's say Pierre Poilievre runs in August in Battle River Crowfoot, and a separatist party gets 18% of the vote.
Or an independent, let's say.
What do we make of that?
I don't know.
It's not enough, right? It's not enough to have a narrative.
No, maybe not. But, here you had the UCP going from 75 to 61. In Battle River Crowfoot, they got, I think it was 82.
82, yeah.
I don't know if they dropped down to, let's say they dropped. So this was a drop of 14 points. So if Poilievre ended up with 68 in that kind of riding, I'm pretty sure we'd say that wasn't a great result. It's not a disastrous one, but it's not a great one. I mean, if I put the over-under line for Pierre Poilievre and Battle River Crowfoot at Naheed Nenshi's number in Edmonton Strathcona,
82.
I'm not sure if he passes that.
Oh, I would be surprised. I mean, you would think they would pour a ton of resources to save Poilievre, because we're going to transition to the federal numbers now and link it to Poilievre. Like the Nanos weekly, I mean, we dove into them last week. We know we have to be careful. But I just compared this week's Nanos to 5 weeks ago. So we have a complete sample. Voting intentions, okay, whatever. We just had an election. But preferred PM, remember how we said, Poilievre has shed a lot of points in there while Monsieur Carney is doing pretty well. Well, Poilievre has dropped 11 points in a month if we compare to 4 weeks ago. So preferred PM in Nanos, Carney 52, that's a +6 in the last 4 weeks. Poilievre 23, it's a -11. So Poilievre is getting close to getting half the support his party had in the election in this poll. He's in trouble. Like, he needs to blow the competition away in the by-election. He needs to have this 80%, so to shut everybody up for a while. If he gets in the 60s, there will be some eyebrows. People will dig up these numbers. And I don't know, man. It's you understand there's a honeymoon for Carney and maybe a little downside for the Conservatives and Poilievre, but this is getting pretty stark. We are closing in 2 months since the election, and Monsieur Poilievre is trailing by over 30 points in the preferred PM. So, yeah.
Yeah, you look at the results in Olds Didsbury, Three Hills, the turnout there was actually pretty good. I think it was over 40%, if I'm not mistaken. So for a by-election, that's pretty interesting. So it does suggest that people were kind of engaged in the fight that was in that riding. So if you have the same kind of thing happen in Poilievre's riding, then maybe you could have an overperformance for these other parties. I mean, the fact that the NDP still got 20% in this riding when they had no shot of winning it. Is pretty impressive. 20% in this kind of riding for the NDP is not a bad result. If I'm not mistaken, it might be their best ever. I think I saw Dave Cornway put that in his newsletter. So, could you have something happen in Battle River Crowfoot where, maybe the Liberals get 15, 20? Can't recall which they got last time, but it couldn't have been as high as that because the Conservatives at 82. And, a separatist independent candidate, maybe, someone who is affiliated with the Republican Party provincially, gets 10, 15. And then suddenly, Poilievre is down to 65 or 60. I think last week or the week before that I thought Poilievre would overperform and maybe even beat Damien Carrick's result in that riding. But now after seeing these results in this rural riding in Alberta, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure anymore.
Liberals had, in Battle River Crowfoot, Liberals had 11.7%, so almost 12, which is, not great. You got you got your doors blown off, but that was expected. I'm not sure the Liberals put a lot of resources in there.
Well, that's one of the questions. We don't know, actually, if the other parties are going to run against Poilievre.
Yeah.
There is the leader courtesy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Courtesy.
I could see Carney not running a candidate there.
Not bother, right? Yeah.
Maybe open the door.
Yeah. I don't like this courtesy thing. Just run, even though, just get experience. Just get your machine oiled. I don't know. But, oh well.
What should we move on to now?
Just quickly, I wanted to mention the Quebec poll. We talked about the voting intentions of Palace Data in Quebec. And in Les Chiffres, for those who listen and want to practice their French, we had an episode last week talking about Legault's favorability. I have a piece coming in the Walrus that digs in these numbers. It probably will be out today or Wednesday. But Legault's favorability has gone down significantly throughout the year. We compare the numbers from June 24 to June 2025. And do you have a favorable or unfavorable impression of Quebec Premier François Legault. 71% unfavorable. 15 favorable. Eric, 15 favorable. And so that's a minus 56. And I took time to dig up a little bit premiers that had a bad ending, like Kathleen Wynne, and I think you mentioned Mr. Salinger in Manitoba. In the past decade, I could not find such bad numbers of favorability. Even Justin Trudeau never got that deep. When we followed the Abacus data and the Angus Street Institute numbers, Trudeau was never at a minus 56. He was at a minus 40, minus 35. So considering Legault has to, a year from now, we'll enter a summer before the campaign. There could be changes this summer in Quebec. We'll see where it goes. But 15% of voting intentions for the CEQ, projection of 0 seats, and Premier in soon entering its 8th year, historically unpopular. All the recipe is there for the end of a small era. Comments? What do you think?
So I used to maintain a archive of polls, right? And I went back a long time, and I gave it up probably during like the pandemic or something. I think I gave it up. So I'm looking through it right now. The lowest number I could find for Salinger, he had a 17% approval rating in December 2014, and a 73% disapproval. So similar,
okay.
But that's as bad as it got. He had a 19 to 72 in 2016. Let's see, who else do we got? Let's look at the Ontario premiers. Looks like
McGuinty. I know in the end he was unpopular, but did he reach these numbers, these levels? I don't remember. I don't think.
No, he was down to the low 20s,
right,
just before his resignation. Kathleen Wynne had a few. Looks like she had a few 12s and 11s.
Ouch!
From Forum, and
Forum.
And let's see. Wait, I also have. I think the prime ministers. Let's see if I can find the prime ministers. I think that one I have going back as far back as possible.
Wow.
Let's see if I can have it. Yeah.
You gave that up? What?
Pandemic?
We had nothing to do during the pandemic. Kidding.
You reevaluate everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I don't have it going back that far. Anyway, I do remember that there was polling from Mulrooney days when he had, I think, a 12% approval rating or something like that. But these would be among the worst ever.
Yeah, that's the point.
And you're a year and a bit out of an election. Is there a CAC Mark Carney?
Oh my God, that brand, which doesn't have deep roots. CEQ. That's the thing. The CEQ only started to exist 14 years ago and won in 2018. But perhaps historians will revisit that at some point. That the CEQ really did win because Quebecers were just tired of the other parties. And now they're tired of the CEQ. So, the saying that we vote out governments, we don't vote them in as much. This could be the case. I do not know who in the CEQ could take over and flip those numbers. The usual suspects that we named, that we rumored to be interested by the top job. But Bernard Drainville is having a rough time at education. Simon Jeanlin Barrette, I think, is smarter than to go into this situation. He can be a lawyer and make a lot of money and do something in the private sector. Geneviève Guilbeault cannot win her seat back with the numbers we see. She's in Quebec City, and the suburbs of Quebec City. So I don't know. And also, do you want to be the guy that takes a party from a 90-seat majority to perhaps a handful and perhaps 0? This is Union Nationale stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true. Quebec has a history of in and out with these parties, eh? So could happen here.
We'll see. But Léger is supposed to publish later this week new Quebec numbers, polled during the weekend. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay. All right. I think you have a quiz for me this
yes,
week.
I have a quiz for you, my friend. And it's another quiz. I know, it's another quiz on the 2025 election because we have so much data. Okay. So here's how it will go. I'm going to read the rules that I made up for this quiz. It's a new format because you keep crushing my quizzes, so I have to make them a little harder. So, I will name a federal riding in the last election and give you a percentage of the vote. Your job is to tell me which party got that percentage of the vote in that riding. It could be a winner, it could be a loser, it could be basically anybody.
Okay.
Here's the twist. There's 12 rounds of this. It's going to go fast. There's 12 rounds of this. I will not tell you whether you're right or you're wrong at each pick, because in the answers, there are 4 Liberals, there are 4 Conservatives, there are 2 NDPs, and there are 2 blocks. 4, 4, 2, and 2. So we'll go through them once, and then you'll have a chance to revisit your choice to make sure you don't have too many or too few of one party. Is that clear enough for you?
That's, yeah, sure.
Okay, good. And also, we have a little document, a spreadsheet where we, what do you call it? An outline for the day. I will help you out so you can be visualized. So my first round, we have 12 rounds. Now, round number 1, Eric, who had 48% in Miramichi Grand Lake.
48 or 47? Yeah, 47.
Okay, so I have to state that I round to the nearest percentage point.
Okay.
And to be fair, only one party got that number. Obviously, if a party had 36.1 and the other had 36.4, then 2 parties had 36. That's not fair. 47%. Who would that be?
Okay. Well, the Conservatives won that seat, and I can't imagine losing with that number, so I'm going to say it was the Conservatives.
Okay, I'm entering the Conservatives. Okay, Eric, who had 19% in Beauce?
That I think was the Liberals, because the PPC just tanked. I think Bernier got like 5 or 8% or something like that, and no one else would get 19. Well, I guess the Bloc could, but I think the Liberals got 19 in Beauce.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. I'm not giving you any hints with my body language or my tone or trash talk. Now, round number 3, Eric, hang on, who had 31% in Beauport-Limoilou?
Ooh, okay, that was the Liberals that won that. That was a bit of a surprise, and I don't think they won it with 31. So I think 31 would have been a second place showing, and in Beauport, who finished second? I don't think the Conservatives did as well as expected there. So, well, maybe they did. I'm going to say the Bloc. Bloc at Beauport.
You said the Bloc?
With 31%.
Okay. Round number 4. I hope our listeners are playing along. Eric, who had 21% in Louis-Hébert?
Okay, another Quebec City riding. So that was the Liberals. It was Lightbound who won that, and he did like 50-something or 21. That sounds like that's got to be second, probably. I'm going to say the Conservatives got 21 in Louis-Hébert.
Say the Conservatives. I'm punching that in. Okay, one last Quebec one. I had to have many Quebec seats because of the Bloc, obviously. I wanted to include them. Eric, who had 13% in Honoré Mercier in Montreal?
Okay, wait. Okay, so I said the Bloc at 31 in Beauport, so
we'll tally at the end. You can change
Honoré Mercier, that's Liberals, would have just swept that riding. That was Rodriguez's old riding. 13%. I guess the Bloc could have got 13 in Honoré Mercier.
I'm going to punch in the Bloc. Okay, that's good. Round number 5. Eric, who had 28% in London Fanshawe?
I think that was the NDP. I think that was one of the ridings where we thought they would do better, and if I recall, they did not clear 30% in any riding in Ontario. So I'm going to say it was the NDP in London Fanshawe with 28%.
Okay. We are sticking with Ontario. Eric, who had 47% in Brampton Centre? Rounded to the nearest percentage point. And you don't play the quiz, not the quiz master.
47.
That's a pretty good number, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm just wondering. So if one party got 47 and didn't win, and the other party got 48, let's say, I don't think Brampton Centre was that close. Could there be 3% of the vote between like the Greens and the NDP? Maybe. I think the Liberals probably did a bit better than that, so I'm going to say that was the Conservatives, 47 in Brampton Centre.
47 Conservatives. Okay, that's good. Well, we'll tally soon.
I feel his tone is somehow mocking me.
A little bit, but... Okay, we're going to Manitoba, northern Manitoba. Churchill-Kiwatsinukaski, who had 24% of the vote.
Ooh. I don't think the NDP did that badly. Well, maybe they did.
That's a theme of the election, huh?
Yeah. 24%. I'm going to say that was Conservatives.
You said the Conservatives?
Yeah.
Okay, let me punch that in.
I feel like I have too many.
We are sticking with Manitoba, who had 14% of the vote in Brandon-Souris.
Liberals, I guess. I'm going to say the Liberals. Can't imagine the NDP got that much of the vote.
Okay. Very good. We are going to Alberta for round number 8. Number 10, sorry. Eric, who had 45% in Edmonton Riverbend.
I'm going to say that was probably the I think I got too many Conservatives now.
Have I found a quiz where I make Eric struggle? Finally.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll say the Conservatives. Conservatives 45 in Edmonton Riverbend.
Okay.
Probably not them.
Round number 11. We're almost done. Then we will revisit one by one. Okay, so we're going to Vancouver Island.
Okay.
North Island, Powell River, who had 26%.
Conservatives won that. The margin wasn't huge, but it was comfortable enough. I think the NDP might have done better than that, so I'm going to say it was the Liberals.
Liberals. Okay. And finally, number 12, who had 37% in Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Another riding on Vancouver Island, or the NDP might have done okay. I think 37, though, would have been a win, and they didn't win that, so I'm going to say that was, again, the Conservatives. I must have like 6 Conservatives.
Conservatives. Okay, so
now I got a call.
All right. So, as I told you, in the right answers, there's 4 Liberal, 4 Conservatives, 2 NDP, and 2 Bloc. Right now, you have 4 Liberal, 6 Conservative, only 1 NDP, and 2 Blocs. So, you have too many Conservatives. You're missing 1 Liberal, and you're missing 1 NDP. So, let's go one by one quickly. Miramichi Grand Lake, 47%. You said the Conservatives. Do you want to keep that? Or do you want to change it?
Okay, wait. You said I have 6 Conservatives, 3 Liberal,
1 NDP, and 2 Bloc.
Okay.
47% in Miramichi Grand Lake. Do you want to keep Conservative or do you want to change?
I'll change it to the Liberals.
Change it to the Liberals. Okay. 19% in Beauce. You said the Liberals.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You okay with that? Beauport-Limoilou, 31%. You said the Bloc. Do you want to keep that?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Louis-Hébert, 21%. You said the Conservatives. Do you want to keep that?
Yes.
Yes? Honoré-Mercier, 13%. You said the Bloc. Do you want to keep that? Note that this is the last Quebec seat.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll keep that.
You'll keep that? Okay. London Fanshawe. You said NDP
Yes, that I'm good with.
28%. You okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Brampton Centre, 47%. You said Conservative.
I'll keep that.
You'll keep that. Churchill, Kiwatsinook, Eski in Manitoba, 24%. You said Conservative.
I'm going to put that for the NDP.
You're going to put that for the NDP, poor Nikki Ashton.
And then I think I'm done.
Brandon Souris, you said Liberal at 14%. Do you want to keep that?
Lock it in.
Edmonton Riverbend, 45%. You said...
I feel great about it, but keep it.
What did you say? You said Conservative. Yeah.
Keep it.
Keep it. Okay. North Island Powell River, you said the Liberals had 26%. Keep it?
Yeah.
You okay with that? Okay. Cowichan Malahat Langford, 37%. You said Conservative.
Yep. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So, here's the tally. Oh, I didn't tell you what the gold, silver, and bronze is. I wrote it down. I didn't tell you. But gold was 10 out of 12 because, right, if you respect the ratios I gave you, if you miss one, you miss two. So 10 is gold, 8 is silver, and 6 is bronze.
Okay.
In Miramichi Grand Lake, the Liberals had 47%. So you changed it, and you're right.
Yes.
In Beauce, the Liberals had 19%, and you're correct. In Beauport-Limoilou, you said the Bloc had 31%. It was the Conservatives.
Oh, it was, wasn't
Bloc
it?
at 29, but the Bloc finished third in that riding. In Louis Hébert, 21%. You said the Conservatives. It was the Bloc.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry.
So I messed up those two.
Yeah.
In Quebec. Okay.
Honoré Mercier, 13%. You said Bloc, and that is correct.
Okay.
So after 5, you have 3. So you're still good for gold. London Fanshawe, you said the NDP had 28%, and you are correct.
Okay. Very good.
In Brampton Centre, you said the Conservatives had 47%, and they did. They lost it with 47%.
Wow, okay.
It was really close. Liberals had 48. So, yeah, the other parties combined had about 5%.
Wow.
Churchill, Kiwatsinook, ASCII. The Conservatives had 24%, not the NDP. Brandon Souris.
Wait, if you have it in front of you, what did Nikki Ashton get in that riding?
I don't have. I have. Hang on. I think she had high 20s or low 30s. What did she get? Okay, she had 28.7.
Okay,
so round to 29. Okay. Rebecca Chartrand had 46% of the vote. Where's my spreadsheet?
All right, Brandon Souris.
Brandon Souris, you said the Liberals had 14%. It was the NDP.
Oh, really?
They had 40%.
That is surprising.
The Liberals had 23% of that riding. Surprisingly good, right? And the Conservatives, of course, won it with 62.
Okay. So now I'm up to 4 wrong.
Yeah.
It's starting to fall apart.
Edmonton Riverbend. Let me just check that again. Did I screw that up? No, I didn't. So you said 45% it was the Conservatives. It was the Liberals.
Really? They got that close, eh?
Edmonton Riverbend, Monsieur Matt Generou had 50%. The Liberals had 45%. It was a good result for the Liberals. I'll try to trick you there. North Island Powell River. The Liberals did get 26%. You were correct.
Okay.
And Cowichan Malahad Langford. The Conservatives won with 37%.
Okay.
So you have 7 out of 12. That's a bronze. So
okay.
But it was this was hard.
This was hard.
Maybe it was a bit too hard. Maybe our listeners are like, "What the hell is this, Philippe?" But I had to try it. Okay, so maybe it was a bit too hard, but you still managed to medal, and
I got half of it right. So
congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Why don't we do the number of the week? Do you got one?
Yes, I do. It's something that will be published shortly. But again, it's the Quebec poll. The question, regardless of your political preference, who do you think will win the next Quebec election? 13% answered the CAQ. It was the PQ 40%, Liberals 26%, and CAQ 13%. And when you break it down by voting intentions, what's left of the CAQ base, only half believe the CAQ will win. So maybe one of the reasons why there are many voters jumping ship off the CAQ, it's because they just don't see how François Legault and the CAQ can win next year. That's really low. That 13% believe that the majority CAQ right now will lose the next election.
CQ is one of those parties that its main attractive
Essence?
quality
Yeah.
is it can win.
Yeah.
And then when it loses that, it doesn't have that much anymore. Doesn't have that much uniting it. So that's what the party came together as a coalition to literally to, a federalist sovereignist, to put that behind, to try to form a government, do things to try to, make things better in Quebec.
And it worked. And it worked.
But when you no longer win, you don't really make much sense as a party anymore. So that's the danger. And like you said, Union Nationale, what else do you got? You got, the NDP in Quebec. Lots of, these parties can rise and fall pretty fast.
Yeah.
Mine is going to be 70%. So in the riding of Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills, and its predecessor ridings, because at some point it was split between Olds, Didsbury, and Three Hills, the Conservative option and the combined Conservative option, so before the UCP, the PCs and Wild Rose, before that you had the PCs and the Social Credit, one of those, always got at least 70% of the vote. Ooh. Combination of those two parties or the UCP always got at least 70% of the vote, and the UCP only got 61%. So to me, that is a little bit of a red flag, because the last time I said they always got over 70% since 1993. I should point that out. The last time that they failed to get 70% was 1993. This was the election with Lawrence Decore was the leader of the Liberals, and it was the closest the PCs ever came to losing their dynasty until they actually did. So anyway, it's just a little bit of a marker that I had put the benchmark for the UCP at least 70%. It seemed like an achievable number. And 61. Not that great. Not that great of a result. So I'm curious to see how the UCP is going to react to it. They can take it as a win. They kept the Republican vote down enough. But also, in a riding where you should be able to get 70, 80% of the vote, when you get 61, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it means. We'll have to wait and see.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be it for this week's episode. We are currently planning to take a break for Canada Day next week, though we will have a special episode for members of our Patreon at the end of next week. And if you want to listen to that, you can go to thenumberspod.ca. You can also just join on Apple Podcasts. We have our bonus episodes there for subscribers as well. If something important happens between now and Canada Day, maybe we could decide to reconvene. But we'll see. But if not, Philippe, I want to wish you a good Saint-Jean-Baptiste, a good Fête Nationale in Quebec today. Wish you as well a good Canada Day. Lots of air conditioning and swimming in pools and things like that, right. I hope. And so I wish that for you and for all of our listeners to have a safe beginning of the summer. And we'll be back pretty soon.
Absolutely. Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Talk to you very soon.